Vision, the synthetic heart that couldn't be repaired. Vision's death in Avengers: Infinity War was a tragic culmination of his journey from a sentient AI to a fully integrated member of the Avengers. As an android, Vision had always struggled with questions about his humanity. His love for Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, added a complex layer to his existence, leading to his eventual demise. Thanos, seeking the Mind Stone embedded in Vision's forehead, set out to extract it, even though doing so would cost Vision his life. Wanda, torn between love and duty, was forced to destroy the Mind Stone to prevent Thanos from using it, but ultimately, Thanos reversed time and took the stone anyway, killing Vision in the process. Vision's death was tragic on multiple fronts. He died at the hands of the villainous Thanos, but also at the hands of Wanda's internal struggle. The emotional toll of losing someone she loved so deeply set the stage for Wanda's eventual descent into madness, leading to her chaotic and destructive path in the aftermath of Vision's death. Even after Vision's passing, his influence continued. His synthezoid body was reformed, his mind was rebuilt, and his legacy remained alive through the actions of the Avengers and his relationship with Wanda. Vision's death was a heartbreaking moment that signified the fragility of even the most powerful beings in the Marvel Universe and the emotional cost of sacrifice and love. Thor, the god of thunder's last fight. Thor's death in Fear itself was another moment that shook the Marvel Universe to its core. In this storyline, the Serpent, aka the former god of fear, unleashed an all-out assault on Earth, driving the world into chaos. As the gods of Asgard were thrown into turmoil, Thor confronted the Serpent in a battle of epic proportions. Thor was ultimately struck down, but not before delivering a final, powerful strike to the enemy. Thor's death was more than just a physical end. It symbolized a loss of faith. Without the god of thunder, the Avengers were faced with the immense challenge of protecting the Earth without their most powerful god. However, in true Thor fashion, his death wasn't the end of his influence. The power of Mjolnir, his enchanted hammer, was passed on to a new wielder, Jane Foster. This moment led to one of the most inspiring transitions in Marvel's history, as Jane became the mighty Thor, wielding Mjolnir with all the strength, courage, and heart that Thor himself would have. Thor's death was significant in that it reminded both heroes and readers of the value of sacrifice, and it showed that even gods could fall. Yet, even in death, Thor's essence remained in the hearts of those who loved him, and his return marked a triumphant moment in Marvel lore. His resurrection, much like many other characters, wasn't just about coming back to life, it was about proving that true heroes never truly fade away. She-Hulk, a heart-stopping tragedy. Jennifer Walters, aka She-Hulk, has always been a character defined by her strength, resilience, and unyielding willpower. But even someone as powerful as She-Hulk wasn't immune to tragedy. Her death during the Civil War II event was a shocking moment for Marvel fans, one that reverberated across the entire universe. The catalyst was none other than Thanos, the Mad Titan, who had long been a foe of the Avengers. Thanos aimed a devastating blow at Jennifer during the chaotic battle, a missile meant to crush her body, severely injuring her in the process. Despite being on the verge of death, Jennifer fought to stay alive, enduring the trauma with a kind of determination that only she could muster. But when her body finally gave out, her sacrifice became a turning point. She wasn't the only casualty. War Machine also met his tragic end during this battle, adding to the loss felt by her fellow heroes. However, this wasn't just the end of She-Hulk. The aftermath of her death raised important questions about the nature of sacrifice and loyalty among the heroes. Even after her apparent death, Jennifer's influence was felt in the ongoing battles. Her final words to Carol Danvers were a plea for unity and justice, a reminder of what the Avengers stood for. Her death didn't just signify the end of a hero, it became the beginning of a larger story about trust, betrayal, and the cost of choosing sides in a world that was becoming increasingly divided. Professor X, a loss that shattered mutant kind. The death of Charles Xavier, the founder of the X-Men and a beacon of hope for mutant kind, was a seismic event in Marvel Comics. Xavier's death didn't come as a simple act of violence, but rather from a series of complex and tragic circumstances in the Avengers vs. X-Men storyline. The Phoenix Force, a cosmic entity of immense power, re-entered the picture, and its influence began to corrupt the X-Men, including the once noble Cyclops. Xavier, who had spent his entire life fighting for peace between humans and mutants, was confronted by his former ally, Cyclops, now under the Phoenix's sway. The resulting confrontation led to Cyclops making a devastating decision to end his mentor's life in a final, desperate attempt to control the Phoenix. But Xavier's death didn't just mark the end of an era for the X-Men. It led to the rise of a new kind of mutant activism, as his dream of peaceful coexistence seemed farther away than ever. Even more shocking was what came next. Red Skull, the villainous Nazi sympathizer, took Xavier's brain and used it to enhance his own power, giving him the ability to control minds on a terrifying scale. With Xavier's psyche twisted and used for evil, the X-Men were forced to reckon with the terrifying reality that their beloved leader was no longer a guiding light for their cause. Doctor Strange, Death and Resurrection, the Sorcerer, Supreme's last stand. The death of Doctor Strange in the Death of Doctor Strange storyline was a momentous occasion in Marvel's mystical realm. Stephen Strange had long been the Sorcerer Supreme, a protector of Earth against dark forces that no ordinary hero could contend with. But even the Sorcerer Supreme wasn't invincible. Caecilius, a former disciple of Strange, turned rogue and killed the Sorcerer Supreme. His death wasn't just about losing a hero, it was about losing the world's most powerful magical defender. Without Strange, Earth was vulnerable to a host of supernatural threats, and the balance of mystical forces was thrown into disarray. Strange's death was not permanent, however. In an unexpected twist, his fail-safe plan brought him back as a temporal remnant, a version of himself suspended in time. He couldn't interact with the real world the way he once did, but he was still able to offer guidance and support to those left behind, particularly to Clea, his former lover and eventual successor as Sorcerer Supreme. This temporary resurrection allowed Strange to impart valuable knowledge to Clea, but ultimately, the world was left with the reality of his passing. Strange's death and resurrection also raised larger questions about the price of power, and whether anyone, even a mystical protector like Doctor Strange, could truly escape death's reach. Carol Danvers, a rebirth of two lives. Carol Danvers' journey from Ms. Marvel to Captain Marvel has been nothing short of extraordinary, and her death was a crucial turning point in that evolution. During her time as Captain Marvel, Carol was one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe. Yet, even the might of Captain Marvel wasn't enough to protect her from the consequences of a violent confrontation with an old enemy, Ghazi Rashid. This villain, a figure from her past, held a deep personal vendetta against Carol, and in a tragic turn of events, he captured her and held her hostage. In a fit of rage and desperation, Carol was pushed to the brink, exploding in a brilliant burst of energy that marked her final moments. However, her death wasn't the end of her legacy. Carol's existence was split into two parallel lives. One was a life where she returned to her Ms. Marvel persona, stripping her of her powerful Captain Marvel identity. The other life was one where she was powerless, stripped of everything that made her a superhero. But eventually, Carol regained her original form and emerged once again as Captain Marvel, a stronger and more determined hero than ever before. This moment marked not just her physical resurrection, but a profound transformation in her character. Carol became a symbol of perseverance, of rebirth, and of the importance of standing up for what is right, no matter the cost. Natasha Romanoff, a final sacrifice in the name of loyalty. Natasha Romanoff, the Black Widow, was a character defined by her ability to navigate the shadows and her willingness to sacrifice everything for the greater good. Her death in Secret Empire was one of the most heartbreaking moments in Marvel Comics. Under the control of the Red Skull, Steve Rogers, the once noble Captain America, became a tyrant. In response, Natasha led a group of young heroes, the Champions, to oppose Rogers' regime. The battle was fierce, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. But in a tragic twist, Natasha found herself caught in the crossfire. She was struck down by Rogers' vibranium shield, a move meant for another, but one that sealed Natasha's fate. Her death left the world without one of its most skilled spies and fiercest warriors. However, her legacy lived on. The Champions continued her work, fighting against the oppressive regime that Rogers had established. Natasha's loyalty to her comrades, her ability to put the mission before herself, and her courage in the face of insurmountable odds became the foundation upon which the next generation of heroes would build. Bruce Banner, an arrow through the heart. Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk, is often considered one of the most tragic figures in the Marvel Universe. His internal struggle between the calm, intelligent Banner and the destructive force of the Hulk is a constant theme throughout his story. In Civil War II, Bruce's death at the hands of Hawkeye was both heartbreaking and inevitable. When Ulysses Kane, a mutant with precognitive abilities, predicted that the Hulk would destroy everything in his path, the heroes were forced to act. Banner, aware of the situation, made a difficult choice. He allowed Hawkeye to shoot him with an arrow infused with a special tranquilizer designed to kill the Hulk. The result was devastating, not just for Banner, but for Hawkeye, who had to live with the knowledge that he had killed his friend. Bruce's death was a symbol of the tragic nature of his existence. He was never truly able to escape the consequences of the Hulk, no matter how hard he tried. But Banner's death didn't mark the end of his story. His body was stolen by the Hand, who resurrected him with nefarious intentions, turning him into a weapon. This new version of Banner had to grapple with the horror of being used as a tool of destruction, raising deep questions about the nature of control and responsibility. Wolverine, Death by Adamantium. Wolverine, one of the most enduring and beloved characters in Marvel Comics, faced his own end in the Death of Wolverine storyline. For decades, Wolverine had been known for his indestructibility, his healing factor making him nearly impossible to kill. But when his healing factor finally failed, Wolverine became vulnerable, and his past came back to haunt him. Enemies from his Weapon X days targeted him, and in a final battle, Wolverine was encased in adamantium, the very substance that made him nearly invulnerable, and it became his tomb. Wolverine's death was a shocking moment for fans, who had long seen him as one of the toughest heroes in the Marvel Universe. But even in death, Wolverine's legacy lived on. His role as a mentor to the younger X-Men, his fierce independence, and his unwavering commitment to justice continued to shape the heroes of tomorrow. Iron Man, a legacy of sacrifice. Iron Man's death in Civil War II was a pivotal moment in Marvel's history. Tony Stark, who had spent years being the genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist, and face of the Avengers, met his end in a way that reflected his commitment to doing whatever it took to protect Earth. Stark's death came at the hands of his longtime friend, Steve Rogers, Captain America, during a catastrophic showdown. In a twist of fate, Stark, who had been advocating for the use of Ulysses' preemptive visions to stop potential threats, faced off against Rogers and the forces of the anti-registration faction. During the battle, Tony's advanced tech failed him, and an emotional blow from Cap sealed his fate. But Stark's death wasn't just about losing Iron Man. It symbolized the end of an era for the Avengers and superhero society in general. Tony's passing left a massive void in the technological defense of Earth, and his genius would be sorely missed. Stark's legacy lived on in the form of his AI assistant, FRIDAY, and in his innovative technology, but his death sparked a crisis of leadership. His friends and fellow Avengers were left to rebuild without the mind that had often been the guiding force behind their victories. Tony's death also became a symbol of personal sacrifice. Stark was a man who, despite his flaws and egotistical tendencies, always put his life on the line for others. His willingness to face death in order to protect those he loved elevated his character, and his legacy as a hero transcended his mortal limitations. In the aftermath of his death, characters like Riri Williams, Ironheart, and even his own best friend, James Rhodes, War Machine, took up his mantle, ensuring that the light Tony had ignited would continue to burn in the hearts of Earth's defenders. I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Marvel comics.